Welcome back to Downloadable Content. Today we are going to take a look at Forefront's latest update. They have changed so much quality of life and added new gameplay features, so let's dive in. It seems like Forefront's actually on the road to be doing weekly updates, so I'm very excited. So stay tuned for weekly coverage on this game as we cover Forefront's related news. This information comes right from the Forefront's main Discord, with Wesley giving us a lot to look at. So first, let's go over the featured changelog. They have added killer highlights. Basically, when you die, it's going to show you who killed you and how, and it's not going to be too intrusive. I'm excited to play around with this one to see how this changes the dynamics of the game. I'm not usually a fan of when games kind of rat you out for when you kill someone. However, the game always lets you talk to the other players when you're dead anyway, so it's like you're getting pinged no matter what. Up next is something I'm super excited for, but they added a content camera setting for better recording on PC VR, which is FOV, your eye rendering modes, no more weird left eye captures. So you can change the offset and more importantly, motion smoothing. So people watching it on flat screen, it's a much better viewing experience. Every single VR game worth its salt needs something like this, so I am super happy that Forefront has added this. Up next is something super important, but they added a skip revive button when dead. So now you no longer will get stuck in that death loop as terrible medics always revive you. And yes, I said it, you don't always have to revive everyone medics. There's a time and place for it, but if you're just sticking your comrade in a death loop, you're not doing anyone a favor. They've also updated the hit indication directionals to improve like visuals, so it's up to you to determine where you get hit. Before it was just like this red goo appeared on your screen, so now it's gonna be more directional to assist the players to be like, wait, I'm getting shot from my left or behind me. Hopefully that helps with the blueberries, but you never know. Up next is my absolute favorite change that they have added so far. It's something that every player has been asking for. It's something that I asked for during the interview with the developers, but they have given the engineers the ability to kill enemies with the repair tool, and they've also given medics the ability to fully charge their defibrillators and kill an enemy player with a fully charged defib. I am so excited. That has been a staple in other Battlefield games, so I'm so excited to get my hands on it and do it in VR for real, for real. I love pranking people in this game. If you guys don't know what that's about, watch my live streams, but I'm so excited to add more nuance to the characters. They've also improved networking, which should result in less lag, stutters, etc., and a more smoother experience, which is great as more people play this game. Of course, it's going to constantly test the servers, so it's great to know that they're always working on things in the back end. I think in the last couple of days myself, I have noticed some strangeness where you know for a fact on your screen you made it behind that cover, but on their screen you didn't, or you've been aiming at an enemy and he's like jittering all over the place. So it's great that that's fixed, or is constantly being improved, for lack of a better term. And then they've also increased the friend limit from 50 to 150, and outgoing requests and block players from 10 to 30. So now you can just send all those friend requests. I'm still waiting for that party system, so you can party up and queue before a match, so it's not so fragmented when you're actually trying to get in the same squad once you've joined a level. And let's not forget that last week they had fixed some things, so now you can switch teams way easier and you can get into your friends' squads way easier. So you can still do that. It's just a little not the best experience right now. I'm sure they're working on it. So now let's move on to the general update that they have. There's a lot of good stuff in here. So players can now only be revived a maximum of 3 times per life. I really think this is actually going to be a game changer, because right now medics always just revive, so much so that they forget that they have a weapon, which is a little crazy. So now every single player can only be revived 3 times before you've respawned. So that's an interesting gameplay change. I'm excited to see how that plays, and hopefully people won't be just constantly throwing their lives away, which I think is good. Having that medic spam, it was getting a little annoying. However, you could always just aim for the medics when they're rubbing their hands together. So we'll see how that works. They may have to reduce it so that the revives are on a timer, so you can be revived a quote unquote unlimited amount of times per life, but maybe put that on a timer. So if, let's say you get revived, you die, maybe it's on a 60-second timer at first, or whatever. I'm interested to see how this plays. Now, here's something that's extra crucial. They have added Australian and South American servers, so more players around the world can play in their region. This will help everyone, so that way you don't have cross pinging. And what I mean by that, you don't have someone from, let's say, Australia trying to play with someone from Central Europe and creating like a 250 ping difference between those players. So now more people in their regions will be able to play locally and have a much better experience. So that's a huge win. Up next affects a smaller percent of the population, but it was super needed. They added, drum roll please, left-handed gear swapping in the settings. Thank goodness. Now, I'm not a left-handed person myself when I play games. However, I have spoken to a few players and they were like, wait, there's no left-handed support. How am I supposed to play? So fret not, it has been added into the game. It's just in those settings for you to swap manually. And speaking of swapping, they actually added a swap gadget on shoulder option in the settings. So if you didn't want to have your defibs on your right shoulder, you want your medical bag there, or you want your recon beacon on your right and not your left, you, the player, have that option. So that is actually really cool, giving players more agency in their play styles. And let's just say their gear swapping one. I think it's a good foot forward. It also sets precedent that there will be more gear for the classes that they can swap out. So maybe instead of a line launcher, I don't know, the recon will get a drone or something. It would be really cool if this is the start of how you can swap out your different gadgets. They've also added haptic effects to the scoreboard button, which I guess it was needed. And they also added haptic effects to rush bomb arming. So if you ever put your hand on the arming thing, you guys know you're supposed to arm those objectives, right? Just saying. But if you ever put your hand on the objective and you're like, is it doing it, as you look around, now you'll have some haptic feedback. The controller will vibrate a little bit to let you know that you are arming the bomb. They also added sand impact effects to the, I never know how to pronounce the map, but it's the Mauritania map. So basically, as bullets are hitting the sand and you're running through it, explosions, you'll see sand now, more sand, I guess. I don't know why we keep talking about sand, but there's more sand. Then they've also added comfort settings. So calibrate height, super important. Snap and smooth angle turns for speed of soldiers when they're in the gunner seat. They updated the vignette option settings if you use that stuff. And also they have added the reset to default buttons. So if you're someone newer to VR, or you use snap turn because you're, I don't know, an imbecile, but they added all those effects. So someone new to VR, you might use the vignette settings. And as you, I mean, it's going to put you at a massive disadvantage, just so you know, if you're using those settings. Try to get your VR legs, practice, so you don't have to use those. But what your vignette settings does, it kind of gives you like a more narrow vision, like those black lines, as you move around and turn to help you with motion sickness. Just know that you're limiting your FOV physically, so you will be at a massive disadvantage. Up next is a potential fix, which is the out-of-memory crashes, which on PC VR, I don't think I've ever experienced that. It's probably more of a standalone one, but allegedly, potentially, that has been fixed. They've also fixed control point UI doing damage to helicopters. That's very interesting, didn't know that. Fix weapon rendering through the deploy button. Also, I don't know what that means, but I'm glad to know things like that are being fixed. They fixed players getting pushed under terrain / falling through the map in certain places. Of course, that is needed. Nothing is as immersion breaking as walking and literally falling through the ground. So thank goodness for that. They also fixed being able to sprint while crouching. This is no longer possible now. This is actually listed as a gameplay exploit. So anyone that was exploiting that, go fuck yourself. No, I'm just kidding, but that's done. So that exploit is gone. Remember, this game is in early access, so players will find that stuff and the devs will hopefully fix things that are too game breaking, so that's great. They've also fixed the exploded points on Rust still showing up when you joined the server later. So let's say the first 2 objectives were exploded, you join in and it still says that they're there. That has been fixed, so it's kind of like a visual thing, so that's good. And now they have dying out of bounds will spawn a ragdoll, but that ragdoll won't be able to get a revive. I don't know if you noticed this, but if a player died during the out-of-bounds zone, they would just dematerialize instantly. There's nothing there. There's just a blood stain. So now that's fixed. You will now know that the player at least died. So if you were tracking an enemy and you watch them go out of bounds, you will now see the ragdoll. So now we have weapons and attachments. So they added a visualization. A red light on the launcher will turn on when ready to fire, and the audio cue for the RPG cooldown. So let me explain those 2 things. First, starting with the RPG, because that's what everyone's going to be using. I'm sure you've noticed that you fired your RPG, and then you've loaded it, and then you've spammed your trigger button, and nothing happened. And you thought, hey, wait a minute, the game's broken. It's actually as intended to prevent rocket spam, but at least now they're going to give you an audio cue to let you know that your RPG is ready. So no, you're not crazy. You did load it correctly. It just has a time debuff before you can fire again. The other thing, meaning the red light on the launcher, they mean the Talon, which is the one that you lock onto air vehicles with, will give you a light when it's ready to fire, which is good. Not a lot of people know. They fire and forget. They're like, am I locked on? Am I not locked on? So anything to help the player learn is great. And once you don't need that, you'll forget about it. But it's great to have that for newer people to say, hey, listen, you are ready to go, ready to fire. They've also adjusted the RPG rocket trajectory. Now, this may seem like a small change, but this is actually going to make a drastic impact. So we will need to play around with this one. I don't know what the trajectory looks like. Before you would fire it and it would just kind of like go down much lower. So this is going to change a lot of players' muscle memory for the rockets. So we definitely will need some experimentation. So all of my fellow engineers get on the forefront and test the new trajectory. Let's see how easy it is or more difficult it is to shoot players at a distance or shoot enemy little birds down. They've added the new repair tool sparking effect. Thank you. Very small thing, but I want to see the repair tool spark to let me know that it's repairing. I know I can see the bar, but I want to see that visual stuff, so thank you for that. They've fixed C4 damaging players through unbroken walls. So apparently before, the C4 was damaging players through unbroken walls, so now they fixed it, where it says fixed C4 damaging players through unbroken walls. So I'm assuming that reads as if the wall is unbroken, you will not take damage. I don't know what that means. I just want my C4 to blow people up. Then we have something for the recon class. It's to fix the sniper bullet impacts not being visible for recon class from a certain distance. And I kind of knew this was happening. I snipe a lot in this game, and sometimes you're like, I feel like that bullet definitely hit something. So you're going to get more clarity now of where the bullet is going, so that's great. However, I still think that there's possibly I want to say a depth of field issue with the sniper bullets, where you could swear on your goldfish's grave that the bullet hit someone, and you still don't get any damage for it. So I still think that needs to be looked at. But it's great that the recon class has eyes on it. Get it? Oh, we did the joke. Okay, last one about weapons and attachment. This is actually pretty cool, is players will now only be able to hear the enemy spawn beacons. And you're probably thinking, what's a spawn beacon? Well, the recon class gets a spawn beacon that their squad can spawn on, and it makes a beep noise. And prior to this update, you would hear your friendly one and you'd be searching out. But no longer do you have to worry about that one. Only enemy recon beacons will be making that beep noise. So if you hear a beep noise over and over, an enemy has a spawn beacon nearby, so take that out. All right, up next is vehicles. So the first thing is they added hit confirmation to vehicle turrets, and thank you, baby Moses. Oh my God. So the turrets are pretty terrible in this game. They still need maybe something else. We'll see if they change it in these patch notes, but you would get visually and physically no feedback if you were hitting anything with those turrets. It's very frustrating. They are still super underpowered. Last time I played, I think it was last night, still underpowered, so I'm hoping we get a look at that one, but at least we have some confirmation that we're hitting stuff. They also added water trails behind the Zodiacs and the jet skis, so just more visual stuff. It just has to look cooler. That's excellent. They changed a variety of vehicle spawn locations on Iceland and Siberia, so look for those. They moved some stuff. They also fixed the tank reticles. Okay, I don't know what that means. Did you mean that we have different colors? Because when I play and the tank reticle is white on white, I can't see it. So I'm hoping that's fixed. We will see. They also fixed helicopters freezing when the pilot disconnects. Thank you. Have you ever wondered why there's just a helicopter floating in the sky? It's because someone's headset died while they were flying the plane and they disconnected. So thank goodness. So I assume the helicopter will fall from the sky and you'll have to switch seats in order to fly it. They also fixed vehicles shooting themselves in certain angles. That's hilarious. So I'm glad that's fixed. They also fixed being able to crouch and stand to shift height beyond normal limits in vehicles. No. Okay. Overall, this might be a good thing. But if you guys didn't know, when you were on like the Hummers, whatever you're going to call them, the MRAPs, you would be able to drive them and also sit in the back. And literally, so once you're sitting in game, you can then take a deep knee IRL and hide yourself. So you used to be able to drive yourself in with a fully loaded car with everyone hidden, and they're like, I guess no one's in this car, and then slowly peek out and start dropping people, and then you would have the vehicles like, I don't know. They could still blow it up, but I think that was cool. So to me, this might be an unwelcome change, but we'll see. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's a good thing in the long run, but I loved doing it. And then finally, they fixed the bolt slide sound being played when grabbing certain weapons. So cool. You always fix audio glitches. That's great. But that is it for the vehicles. And then finally, we have a lot of UI changes. So I'm praying to the bright Lord Wesley that they fixed the UI, especially the vehicles and things popping up so many times that block me when I'm shooting. So let's look at it. First things first is they added a server browser regions filter, of which the default setting is set to ping. So if you're someone like me that primarily plays on US East servers, I always have to scroll and look for them. I have no need to go into the Asian and European ones. So this is great. Next, they added a light drop shadow effect to the Little Bird's aim reticle. It was harder to see on maps like Siberia. So they've actually mildly, quote unquote, have buffed the Little Bird's at least ability to see things. They also added a drop shadow to the blue circles and green class icons above friendly, so it's easier to see if someone is a blueberry. They added extra space for server names and overlay in the UI in the server browser. They also added informational pop-up if no VR headset is detected to play the game. Okay, that's a thing that you added. And then they have added animated arrows to the deploy button once ready to spawn. Okay, so it's letting you know. So if you died and then you're like, oh, I'm dead for 10 seconds, let me check my phone. Now you know. So if you can't wait 12 seconds, now you know that you can spawn. They've also added a nice graphic to the end of the match UI when no new unlocks are available. Well, that's just adorable. I can't wait to see that. They fixed the My Soldier UI not showing class levels anymore. Plus, they reverted it back to the previous font size. They fixed the wrong class icon showing in scoreboard after respawning. Okay, cool. They fixed flickering repair UI when repairing a moving vehicle. That's good. That is good. You never want to get epilepsy when you're playing. They also fixed overlapping, leveling up, and out of bounds UI. Okay, that's actually a big thing because when you're playing and too many pop-ups are happening on your screen, especially in a game where you have to constantly be shooting and moving, you don't want too many pop-ups. They improved all weapon, gadget, and attachment icons in the loadout menu. They've improved UI of unlockable attachments, now showing X out of 10 kills instead of 10 kills, so that's good. That was needed because it was kind of confusing people. And finally, all loadout buttons can now be pressed with your hands in VR as well as using the pointers. Okay, so that's just more of a quality of life thing. What I did not see on here, which is making me a little sad, but maybe we'll get it, is the option of disabling certain UIs. Like I don't need to see that Objective C was taken out if the announcer is telling me Objective C is taken out. So leave that up to the players. I beg of you, my Lord and Savior Wesley. I need that feature. Oh, Mystic Wesley, please let me disable unnecessary UI that I keep yelling at as I'm playing. Please. Okay, good. Finally, there is one last and final one that kind of popped up out of nowhere, but it's a bug, so hopefully they're fixing it. It's a server-side only fix, but Wesley says that they have rolled out a fix that could potentially resolve the invincibility bug that has been popping up. This fix is gradually rolling out across servers, so they'll remain on the lookout. I don't know if this was just like a spawn protection thing, is what I thought, but have you ever been shooting someone and you're like, dude, I just mag dumped like 16 bullets in you, and then you still lose? Well, I think it's a bug. Sometimes it's tied to, especially on Rush, when the defending player respawns, they usually have a small amount of iframes where they're invincible, so they don't get like spawn bombed. However, because they spawn so close, that results into them feeling immortal. And it looks like this bug is pervasive where it stayed a little bit longer than necessary. So that's great that we have that fix. Okay, I just spoke a lot about Forefront and Forefront's latest update. I am so excited to get my hands on this and play this, and I hope you are too. It looks like every single week they will be giving us updates. So stay tuned to this channel as we give you weekly status updates and break things down for your viewing pleasure. So make sure you're subscribed. It's free to do so. Hit the subscribe button down below, leave a like, and leave a comment of things you maybe want to see changed, and hopefully the developers hear your cries and they etch your name into the reality of, I have no idea what I'm saying. But thank you so much for stopping by. I'm Drifter from Downloadable Content, and I will see you on the Forefront.